Evil Squid Comics podcast. We are part of the Collector's Maze Network.
Don.
Scott.
Andrew. All right, Scott, do your Freaks Amour.
I am very interested to listen to Scott's review of this. He's very articulate.
Oh, am I?
And I'm interested to hear what he thinks about it.
So, okay. I have a lot of thoughts about this.
I got a lot of thoughts.
Type things. And I'm not really sure. I've thought of... So here's the thing. It's not...
Uplifting?
Well, yeah, that's for definitely sure. I think it's, okay, so Freaks and More. Hester, Andy Parks did it, way back in the 90s?
Yeah, it was like one of their very first
very early type of thing. Based off of a novel that was a pretty well-received novel or had like a cult following type of thing. And so as reading this, I could see why it had a bit of a cult following,
right?
Type of thing.
Especially at the time, right?
At that time,
because 60s,
70s or something like this, type stuff, and things. And then putting this out there, I was telling Drew a little bit in which, the basic idea of Freaks and More is there's some type of accident that happens. You mentioned this, that turns like people in this entire city area or something into freaks. And, they are different than the majority of people across the country,
right.
Type things. But there's also seems to be like some bit of fallout that's still around there where there's still things that are freakish in that area, as well. And so these freaks are doing whatever the heck that they can do to survive in this world in which they are different from everybody else. And in the case of some of them, they're either trying to get new skins to try to blend in with other people. Some of them just accept for what they've got their fate and they do whatever they can that's there. And then others, almost rebel, against the system, in some cases. And in the case of, two of our main characters, you have is a Grinner and I think Flower, which are brothers. One of them is, really trying to change, and become more like the other humans.
To be human.
That's right. And then the other one is all about almost a little bit of a rebellion and going, hey, let's stick it to the man, and whatever, and found these strange, freakish goldfish eggs that can give you like a bit of a taste of death, in which you would pretty much clinically die, for a period of time, and then you resurrect and come back, and you see like some lights, and whatever the heck else. So that's the overall gist of it. And of course, with that, type things, it comes with the fact that the goldfish eggs become a bit of a street drug, in some ways that they're trying to sell, and whatever else, and then it gets wind of, some type of powerful, what would you say, powerful organization where they're like, we want your eggs, and they're trying to figure out how to get it. Now that's all happening throughout here. Part of the problem in this presentation,
it does say it,
is it reads like a novel, type thing.
Right.
So there's a lot of aspects of narration that's going on there. Character development seems to pretty much focus on, the one, our one narrator of Grinner and maybe his relationship with his ape-looking girlfriend, type things, and, and other things that are going on there. I get the feeling that the novel probably fleshes out like a lot of those characters a little bit better than probably this does. It's got a couple main ones, but you don't really get to know some of the others. But overall, there's a really deep story, I think, going on here, in which, in some cases, for me, it felt like it was over my head, type things. That maybe I wasn't getting the entire gist, if either because it's in a smaller section or whatever the heck else. But it also was a case of something in which I think it was past. I think I'm reading this too late in my life, in some ways, for it to probably give the emotional hit that it probably would. If this is something I read in college, maybe even high school, perhaps it could be one of those things where I go, oh my God, this is so great because of the fact that it's telling this story, about outcasts and whatever else and these type of things. At this point in my life, I'm kind of like, okay, yeah, I don't know if I really need the down and dirty, grimy, I've got to fight the man or whatever else, these type of things.
Right.
And it just didn't have the same impact, I think, to me that it probably would have if I would have read it in those more formidable years type of aspect. So, excuse me. So because saying that, I don't think it was really my cup of tea. It was a little bit of a struggle to get through because it is a translation of a novel to a comic, so it is pretty wordy, in some cases. the art you can definitely tell is, some, these younger artists these artists that were younger at their time experimenting a bit. Almost even has like a little bit Frank Miller-ish type of looks in some cases, and things, kind of sketchy. I think it works for what the tale is.
I do too.
Type stuff.
Yeah.
It has this kind of darker feel, but it truly feels like to me it's a product of its time. If I was there in the 90s, where we kind of had that kind of depression, slacker generation, whatever the heck else, type things. I think it really speaks to a lot of that. And that's why I say, had I read this probably 30 years ago, type things, I probably would have liked it a lot more than reading it at this stage of my life. As it is, I can see why people thought it was influential. Unfortunately for me, I feel like I'm past that, type of aspect.
Yeah, I understand. I understand all of that.
Yeah.
It didn't really hit that way for me. I liked it. Like, it was interesting. Like, it's a cool story. And yeah, it's kind of like we talk all the time, right? Like, certain ideas have been done and overdone and redone and done again, right? And so, like, we've experienced all those stories, like, 3, 4, or 5 times, right? And then when we get another one, like, sometimes it hits and sometimes it doesn't. Like, I don't even remember what it was, but I was like, I read something and I'm like, yeah, I don't need, like, I've already done this, so I'm good.
And then others hit the nostalgia factor in the right spots,
right.
Things of that nature too.
And so, I mean, I understand, but I don't know. I really like Andy and Phil.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought it was really well done. Like, I didn't have a problem getting through it. Like, it was just a page turner, right? Like, I just wanted to. I thought it was great. But I understand completely what you're saying.
Yeah.
About hitting at the wrong time or whatever. And it could be, just because I really enjoy those guys and I thought the artwork was cool. But the story wasn't...
The story feels to me a bit of a coming of age type of thing in an area where you're, different or outcast type things.
Absolutely.
Which, if you look at that, that's the way teenagers, I think, and even, to a point a little bit, the 20-somethings feel,
right.
type
exactly.
stuff. Going, I'm lost, what the heck do I do? And that's the feel that I get with that. That's why I say,
I'm in my 50s, Scott.
So, but there again, that's why I say I think this would have been a total different... hit to me had I read it then versus now where I'm going, well, I'm kind of past all that now.
Right.
I can see some of these type of aspects of it, but now I just feel like it's a bit of a, a bit of a novel-ish type of thing that I'm kind of getting through that just didn't give the same. Well, it's a good, aspect and written type of thing. It's not giving me that impact that I think it probably would give a lot of other people if they read it in the right age range, or whatever you want to say, or time of their life, whatever it may be. I told Drew, I said, I thought you might actually like it to a point, but it depends on if it hits that nostalgia type of factor or not, type
doesn't look appealing.
Really?
Art?
Okay.
Or
none of it.
Huh.
I like the cover.
Well, yeah, that's Charles Bronson.
Quite honestly, and see, for me personally, I think the cover's almost the weakest thing of the whole thing, type aspect.
It's not Charles.
As I'm looking through this, the art.
Means he's not a Matt Allison guy.
The art itself, I thought was really pretty solid, and like I said, it had this kind of sketchy, dirty type, grimy
the
feel.
The art really fits the story.
Exactly.
Like, it's a perfect match.
Yes, yeah, I agree with you. Now, sometimes because of it, though, too, with being as dark as it is, I found sometimes to pick up some of the particular details may have been a little difficult. I think in some cases...
there were,
and I may have to go back there a little bit, to go, okay, did I see that right, or whatever else, to try to pick up on what was going on there a little bit.
I got a little foggy with just the story when it gets towards the end, and there's the one guy that was his old buddy, and he kind of sells him out or whatever.
Yeah, beef.
Like, that got really, like, I had to go
back. It does
back.
get a little convoluted.
I had to go back and, like, reread a couple pages and go, what is going on?
Well,
what
and you do have that problem, I think.
And I don't think it's actually ever really explained very well.
I don't think so either. And that's one of the things in which I think they were doing for time, or for whatever else. That's what I say. I gotta feel like the novel probably gets in more in depth, especially with some of those characters and that type of thing. Where I think for saving of time, space, whatever else, that they had to do there, that they had to kind of, hope that the reader could fill in a little bit of some blanks and get the main points across that they needed to.
Well, one of the things that I was thinking, like, they talk about it because you read about the forward and then you read the afterword or whatever, right? And it's like they talk about this novel, about how it was like, really popular and like everybody was reading it. It's very nostalgic and this and that. And it's like, if it was the late 60s, early 70s, like I had just been born,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
I'm a kid. But it's so weird because I've never even heard of it, right? Like if it was that
Very
much
true.
of a
That
like
influential.
it makes you wonder, like, was it just a niche thing or like how niche, whatever, niche. You know what I mean? Like when you read the book or this stuff, it's like, oh my god, this was everywhere. Like, it was on the Johnny Carson show and all
Yeah,
the newspapers were talking
But
about
I
it.
feel
And
like this was a little bit more of
a
an
huge
underground
revolution
type of thing.
I think so too. So, but it is weird how like you read it and you're like, oh yeah, this was everywhere. Like everybody read this and everybody loved it, and like probably on like college campuses and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I think. It was probably more of a college campus underground type of
Right.
thing, whatever else, kind of in those things. And I mean, that's where I go to, in some cases, as I'm reading this, and thinking of what kind of influence I think of, at least in my time frame, how maybe some certain music, type things probably had similar influence or whatever else, but a lot of that was from, you're listening to music on the college campus that
Right.
is probably not into there, or, certain movies of the time, that are really shot for my generation that maybe had something. I could see that with this. It just, unfortunately,
Yeah.
I've read it 30 years too late.
Right.
In some cases.
Scott's old.
Yep.